they are really calling the shots all over the planet. They know no national boundaries. They don't listen to any specific set of laws. They strike deals with the Chinese and the Taiwanese and the Tibetans and the Israelis and the Arab nations. Whoever has the markets or the resources, they cut deals with. And as we've seen in our most recent election here in the United States, we bring in a president who's very diametrically different from the former president, and yet the corporations are still calling the shots, which takes us back, Amy, to the fact that we, the people, must create the change. This has always been the case, and this is a clarion call for us at this point now in history that we must get out there. We've got to get behind Obama and all the other politicians. We've got to force the corporations to change their goal, get away from this goal of maximizing profits regardless of social and environmental costs, and instead say, yeah, it's okay, make profits, but only within the context of creating a sustainable, just, and peaceful world. Only within the context of creating a world that my grandson will want to inherit, and that means every child on the planet will want to inherit it. Because I think it's really important that we understand today we cannot have homeland security unless we understand that the whole planet is our homeland. Our homeland is no longer defined by the Rio Grande and the Canadian border. We are one human species living on a very fragile planet.
What is the burden of the melting glaciers?
The melting, you know, I was in Tibet a couple of years ago, and I stood there with these nomads and looked at this glacier that had been down at the road a decade or so before, and now it's way back a mile away. And these glaciers up in the Himalayas feed the 5 largest rivers in the world. They provide water to China and to India. And as these glaciers melt, the water's drying up. The glaciers are melting because of global warming, because of us. And what we have to understand is the huge consequences. If these 5 rivers no longer can feed water to the Chinese and the Indians, these people are going to die of thirst. And before they die of thirst, they'll become very rebellious. We have to understand that one of the root causes of terrorism, I don't even like the word terrorism because I don't think it's really an ism. It's a whole bunch of diverse groups all over the world. But in practically every case, it results from starvation, from desperation. I've met a lot of terrorists. I've interviewed them for books. I've never met one who wanted to be a terrorist. These are farmers who've been driven off their farmlands by oil companies or hydroelectric projects, or they're fishermen like the Somali pirates who can no longer make a living fishing because their waters have been fished dry or destroyed by nuclear waste from U.S. military vessels. I have not met anyone who wanted to be a terrorist. They're desperate people. If we want to get rid of terrorism, we must get rid of the root causes, that cancer that is destroying our whole system.
The new rules you propose for business and government?
Well, you know, we all know that getting rid of the rules that protected us from another recession has helped to bring on this current recession, you know, things like Glass-Steagall and the banking laws and so forth. We need to implement a lot of those again. But I think we also need another whole new set of laws that says businesses must look at being environmentally and socially responsible. For 100 years after the United States became the United States, no corporation was allowed to get a charter unless it could prove that it served the public interest. And charters came up for renewal every 10 years or so. They didn't get a renewal unless they could prove they served the public interest. That all changed with the Supreme Court ruling that made corporations equivalent to individuals in the late 1880s, and then John D. Rockefeller stepped in and really took things made things go out of hand. But we need to go back to an understanding that corporations are there to serve us. When I went to business school, I was taught that a good CEO takes care of the long-term interests of the corporation, the employees, the customers, the general economy, not just there to make short-term profits. And we really need to get back to that, to an understanding. I think we need laws and rules that say that corporations must be aiming toward creating a sustainable and just and peaceful world. We simply have to do that. These are our main controlling organizations today, and they must be answerable to what's best in the public interest, not just the interests of a few very wealthy, powerful people.
John Perkins, self-confessed economic hitman. He's got a new book out. It's called Hoodwinked. An economic hitman reveals why the world financial markets imploded and what we need to do to remake them. And that does it for our broad